Good day, welcome to the Automotive Dad and welcome to the 2024 Genesis GV60. Now Genesis have been around a lot longer than you would think they have been, because before Genesis were a standalone brand, they were a brand underneath Hyundai, the Hyundai Genesis. But this is their all-new flagship, the GV60. This specific GV60 is finished in Hinauma mint, has massive 21-inch alloys and has up to around about a 280 mile range. This one on the road costs us close to £75,000. However, you can get a premium on the road for around about £55,000 and around about £450 a month. So join me as I have a look around the 2024 Genesis GV60 and find out if this is the best electric family car money can buy. Now, like it or not, you can definitely agree that this is a bold front end. Genesis wings on the bonnet, lovely headlight design, bright adaptive headlights, more on that in a bit. But it's nice and round and aerodynamic, it's different, it's bold, it makes a statement, and I have a lot of time for this entire front end. I think it looks really, really cool. What do you think? Comment below. Now, the side profile is just as bold as the front design. It's quite a statement, and to be fair, I look at it and I think it's really nicely done in all forms. This kind of reminds me of a prototype car that's actually ended up being built, because with 21-inch alloys it's properly filled the arches. There's none of this OTT space that you normally see in an electric car. There's none of this trying to be extra bougie and electric and aerodynamic. This, as a Sport Plus, really looks the business. A lovely flowing design all the way to the back with a lovely ducktail spoiler. I mean, it's striking, and pop-out door handles just looks great. What else can I say? This is a really good looking car. Now, the rear end of this car is probably the only slightly boring part, because back ends of cars so often are. There's not really much to it. It's lets you know it's a Genesis, lets you know it's a GV60, has this lovely ducktail-ish spoiler on the back, but there's really not much going on. Yes, the light clusters are nice, and yes, the design is good, but in comparison to how bold and different the rest of the car is, this is the least interesting bit for me. Still not a bad effort, but compared to the rest of the car, this almost seems a bit dull. So let's talk interior, because this is where Genesis have excelled themselves. They've pipped it. Because when you compare this against others in this segment, an electric crossover SUV, so that's people like Audi, Porsche, Mercedes, this is nicer and better finish. Now, this one does have Napa leather. This one does have the Bang & Olufsen sound system. But aside from that, the actual design and the quality of this is just unquestionable. The fact that there are actual functional buttons, two over 12-inch displays in front of you. There's loads of tech, but it's not overbearing, it's not in your face, and everything isn't put into the cluster in front of you. You actually have buttons and extra screens, and it's just really well thought out and massively nicely designed. The quality is just great. And for front space, loads of headroom. If you're over 6 foot, you're not going to struggle. Good amount of reach for everything that you need to touch. Your passengers have loads of space, loads of comfort, even a speaker built into the door handle there. The entire front part of this passenger cabin is just luxurious, and the second you step in, it feels like a really special place to be. And to add, on this infotainment system, there's loads of extra settings to guarantee that premium executive experience for your passengers, because Korean car makers are all about making sure you have the best possible journey. So if you want to make sure that your front audio doesn't disturb people at the back, it pans the music to the front but uses this like oral relay system to make sure that the back end is barely affected. And if you want to talk to your Siri or your Google, it only mutes the front speakers and keeps everything else on the go. It's just really well thought out. The entire front of this is nicely done and everything feels quality, and you can see why Genesis are going to very quickly take over this marketplace. Whilst they are expensive, they're also incredibly good. Now join me for the rear part of this interior. Now, rear space comfort, and to be more specific, comfort for the kids, because this is what this is, the Automotive Dad, yes. 2 ISOFIX 360 seats in, without question, loads of room left. I've put these both in rear facing position so you can see just how much space there is. Obviously I run one rear facing, one forward facing, and the same thing goes that even when you have comfort mode selected on the seats and they go back and forth and stuff, they don't hit the seats, they don't crush anyone's feet. It is great. So from a rear comfort point of view, it's amazing. There's a lovely massive sunroof for them to look out of, and blinds, like look at this. Built in to the car door. Even if you have heavy tints, blinds are so important. I've actually got a set of car blinds made by a company called Car Shades in our Octavia, just to bring the light level down in the back and give a bit of privacy. So few car manufacturers have things like this, and it's so important. It gives the kids the comfort and security and privacy and everything without having to give you over tinted interior windows. No more limo blackout tint for no reason. Access is good in the back. Without the car seats in, there's a reasonable amount of leg room, but because of the way that this is set out kind of on a flat floor, there's not loads of space to get your feet under the front seats, but it's not exactly uncomfortable. But everything's here. There's vents, there's heated rear seats, there's cup holders. This is just a really well thought out rear end of a car. So again, they're excelling here as well. Now the only place where this doesn't get tippy top marks for me is the boot space, because it's not huge. It's something like 450 litres, where you look at the size of this car and you think, well, shouldn't it be more like 700 litres? And it's because the boot floor is quite high. I understand there are battery packs down there. They're not alone in this. Almost everyone who has a crossover SUV that is electric tends to battle with this issue, but it's one of those where I'm thinking you've overcome it in so many other areas and made it so different. Why couldn't you just overcome it here? The boot space is still fine. You can still fit your prams in. Absolutely fine. The boot height is not too high. But I just wish it had just been a tiny bit bigger. The boot size is just a little bit too small. The only brand who's kind of nailed that is Tesla with the Model Y. And that's the only thing it's got for it, for me. So let's talk drive. So 490 PS, 700 Newton meters of torque, and in reality you're going to be reaching 62 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds. All that is kind of expected when it comes to an electric car. Why? Because it's an immediate amount of torque. That 700 Newton meters of torque comes in straight away and pushes you to the back of your seat. This is a really quick car. But also being Sport Plus, this has the 21-inch alloys, which, to their credit, actually ride the road really well. Normally, when you have wheels this size, you feel every intricate, tiny bump, you know, when you've driven over a snail. But these are actually pretty good. The ride's pretty compliant, and in corners, this thing honestly goes round like it's got a passive rear steer, and it doesn't. It's just a really reasonable driving thing. When it comes to consumption, realistically you are going to get around 3 miles per kilowatt hour. That range is more likely, at least in November in the UK in 2024, to be about 220 miles if you're really willing to push it. Yes, 100% in the summer. If you're really lucky, I could just about see the, I think it's 276 miles WLTP range that they say this should get. But in the cold, with anything on whatsoever, no, not a chance. But 3 miles per kilowatt hour for a car with 21-inch alloys of this size, with this performance, it's pretty reasonable. Around town, if you're lucky, sometimes you can push it up to 4 miles per kilowatt hour, but it depends how flat it is. Any inclines, electric cars don't like inclines, yeah. The cabin comfort as you go along is that this is really quiet. You don't get jolted around. The seats are mega comfortable. So from a drive point, it surpasses expectation, because electric cars are so often just a little bit boring to drive, a little bit dull. And Genesis have tried to put a bit of the fun back in. I mean, you have it in certain modes and it gives you a rear wheel drive bias to really spice up the driving dynamics. The steering is pretty responsive to what you put in. The brakes don't feel over EV-y. In actual fact, if you have regen off on the paddles, the brakes just feel like a normal car. Drive this on as an I-pedal and your economy goes through the roof and it just feels like a normal EV at that point. But Genesis have really done well in making this less of an electric car for the person who wants to go EV but doesn't because they miss certain or will miss certain aspects of an internal combustion engine car. And they've absolutely nailed it. My only bugbear really is that if you do 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, and this is in every new video, it bings at you like nothing else, and this bongs at you when you come near a speed camera as well. Like a horrific amount of all the time that I spent in Korea. I know that cars bong because there's cameras everywhere, and I remember being in taxis with a unfathomable amount of bing bonging going off. There's one right there. It's like telling you, you have arrived at a speed camera. Hand over your driving licence. Here's 3 points and £100 fine because you could definitely speed past the speed camera by just sneezing as you go past it. That's how instant and reactive this throttle is. Anyway, the drive's good. I really enjoy driving this car. The miles per kilowatt hour could be better, but big car, big wheels, kind of expected. The drive's good, really good. So how do you summarise a Genesis GV60 in anything other than saying it's a really good car? Because it is a really good and functional and practical car that looks really cool, has 490 PS, 700 Newton meters of torque, and can propel you to 62 miles an hour in about 3.5 seconds, all whilst taking you and your family somewhere safely with a good amount of load space. And yes, to get the affordable one affordable at around about £55,000, £450 a month, you don't get all that speed, but you do still get the safety, the style, the comfort, and the practicality. That extra money is really just for the fun part, and the 21-inch enormous wheels. I think this is a really well-designed car. I think that given the marketplace and the segment that this represents, that this is premium in so many ways and excels in so many ways. No car can be absolutely perfect, but Genesis have really given it a sterling go. This interior is above anyone else. Honestly, the build quality is just second to none. The infotainment system's great, the sound system's great. Just the general quality is amazing. The exterior design is the bit that has to be for you. I love how this looks, but not everyone does. The drive is just... Trying to make electric cars exciting is difficult because you don't have gear changes like you do in a conventional car. Not yet, at least. One manufacturer may or may not have put that in. Maybe that video will come soon. But the drive is still engaging and fun in this. Even in the single motor premium, and you're getting better range for it anyway. This is just great. I think Genesis have done an amazing job in styling this, making it practical, and affordability is, well, everything is expensive in this day and age. Literally everything. And
don't get me talking about public charging infrastructure and cost around it, because I know that they have to have things invested, and I know that they've invested money and their rates have gone through the roof.
Anyway,